watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Well, good morning to you and welcome into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer and thanks for joining us on this Wednesday morning live on Fox Local and on YouTube. We have a lot to get to today, so I want to let you know some of what we have ahead of us in this next hour here. Appreciate you joining us on this Wednesday. We are continuing to try to learn more about the future of the Tropicana Field site and the historic gas plant district as questions linger over the future of the Rays and their stadium there. Colleen Wright, who's a reporter with the Tampa Bay Times, moderated a very interesting panel discussion and forum last night that looked at that issue. We will take you inside that panel coming up in just a little bit. This morning, leaders from Orange County and from Orlando talked about and worked toward planning a new resource for domestic violence survivors. It's called a Family Justice Center. And it consolidates many resources and other entities kind of under one roof for these domestic violence survivors. We heard from the Orange County Mayor. We heard from we heard from the Orlando Mayor. We heard from the Orange County Sheriff and some other officials as well, talking about the importance of this and what this will allow them to do when it comes to addressing domestic violence and helping survivors here. So we'll go into that in just a little bit. At 11:10, we will have more on a federal judge blocking Florida's new social media law that, among other things, bans users who are below a certain age. We're going to talk with one of the co-plaintiffs in that lawsuit, so from one of the groups that challenged it. Feeling vindicated, no doubt, at this point, but we also know the Attorney General is appealing that decision, so we'll see where things go. We will have that interview coming up in about 8 minutes from now, but we begin today with storms and heavy rain on the way. Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist Brooks Garner joins me now, and Brooks, we're talking a weather impact day. Going to be a soggy one out there.
It sure will. After a fairly quiet morning, we've got downpours developing right now that'll be rolling into the region, especially after 2 o'clock. So if you have any outdoor plans, whether it's theme parks or swim lessons or landscaping, heavy rain is likely to impact your afternoon, and it could be torrential. It's tropical. Here's a look at Daytona Beach. Threatening skies. We're watching out for some water spouts on days like this if bigger storms develop offshore. While things are quiet right now, it has been anything but quiet around the Tampa Bay region. In fact, some big thunderstorms have been forming, dumping upwards of 3 inches per hour, with rainfall totals there exceeding 5 inches, causing some flooding in urban areas of poor drainage. Good for the drought issues, but still, that's some really heavy rain. And here's a look at the Sunshine Skyway Bridge as this squall was moving right overhead, and you can see it is wet, and at times it has been very windy. So just one of those days where as you're out and about, the wipers will be on, and you will have some times of greatly reduced visibility. Now, it looks like the worst of the weather is going to move in probably after about 2 o'clock, and it's not going to rain consistently throughout the afternoon. It's going to come in waves where you might get 20 or 30 minutes of a downpour, and during that time, you could pick up an inch of rain. It may dissipate a little bit to some sprinkles, maybe stop entirely for a couple of hours, and then pick back up again. And as these rains come through, they can produce occasional claps of thunder, but more so, winds gusting over 40 to maybe 45 miles per hour. It's going to look like a tropical storm out there. Rain totals could exceed 3 inches in spots. This map is a guide of what's potential, not necessarily to say that, for instance, Kissimmee will have 5/100 of an inch of rain and Bushnell will have 4/200 of an inch, or 3 inches in the villages. It just gives you an idea that we may have 3 inches in spots and there may be less amounts in other spots. That's the nature of the game. Here's what's going on. We've got a upper level low in the Northeast Gulf that is pumping in moisture from not just South Florida, but this is traceable all the way into the Caribbean and Central America. It's like a giant siphon just pulling in this moisture. And we've got also some what's called forcing on the west side of this thing, where you see that orange coloration out in the Northeast Gulf. That dry air is bumping into the tropical air, so it's forcing it to rise. And so that's what's producing these big thunderstorms. So as they form here this afternoon, we'll have heavy rain as the primary threat, reducing how far you can see out there on the roads. And we'll have wind gusts that could exceed 45, 50 miles per hour, bringing down some limbs. Hail and tornadoes not likely today in this kind of a setup, but water spouts are a possibility. Hey, here's some good news. in the tropics, that yellow blob that had existed off of the southeast coast in the Atlantic, indicating a 10% chance for development, a low chance of development in the tropics, is now down to 0. The National Hurricane Center has updated that. The reason is thanks to Saharan dust. Yes, we've been tracking the Saharan dust for the last 2 weeks, and one of the things Saharan dust does is it has extremely dry air between the altitudes of roughly 1,500 feet and up to about 10 or 15,000 feet. And it's like a big paper towel, and it can mop up humidity. And while it's still muggy here on the surface of the earth where we're walking around, it's not going to feel drier for you as you're out and about walking around. But aloft above your head, it is drier. And this dust will be coming in, especially tomorrow, and working northward. So for a time, if we break out into a little bit of sunshine tomorrow, or maybe there's some sun between the clouds, it's going to look hazy, almost like a brownish haze, at least on the horizon. And this is the kind of thing where if you have any chronic respiratory issues, severe asthma, COPD, I'm not a medical doctor, but I can go down the list and sound like a pharmaceutical commercial. It'd probably be best to limit exertion outside. You don't want to go for like that 20-mile run, because you'll just be sucking in microscopic particles of silica, sand from the Sahara Desert. It's kind of wild to think about, but that's what it is. It gets real deep in the lungs because it's really like little microscopic bits. They're called particulates, like particles. Anyway, this is going to be with us in various intensities and thicknesses over the next 2 weeks or so. And there's more of that from where it originated, blowing across the ocean on these trade winds. So this is a hurricane killer. And that means that not only will we have quiet conditions in the tropics in our region over the next several days, this could last for the next several weeks before we see some activity maybe popping up in the Western Caribbean if there's an opportunity for that to happen. All right, let's talk about today's weather. With the clouds and the rain, I'm not expecting temperatures to climb too much. In fact, we may top out in the lower to middle 80s. That's it for Orlando. If it gets a little bit warmer with a little bit more sun breaking out, I know we've had a couple of rays of sun here and there. We could see heavier rain developing this afternoon because that will only further destabilize our atmosphere, leading to more lift. All right, tomorrow, we've got a chance for more storms. That moisture will still be lingering, although it won't be quite as intense because that Saharan dust will roll in, kind of drying it up. So we still got a chance for some storms. And if we get any storms tomorrow or through the weekend, they could feature really gusty winds, like over 50, 60 miles an hour. Because what happens is inside of a thunderstorm, when dry air gets sucked in, it can produce downbursts in microbursts. It's a kind of a complex process, but it involves evaporational cooling. And so you get a cold parcel of air that becomes a lot more dense in its surroundings, and it just falls down like a bowling ball, like gravity can really gust. So that's one of those things about the Saharan air layer, the dust that a lot of folks tend to forget, even in the weather world, as far as like impacts to our everyday experience. So hazy, not great for breathing, big wind gusts and thunderstorms. But one of the perks is it kills hurricanes. At least it can tamp down their strength. And another perk is it also feeds the oceans with valuable phosphates and iron content that keep the coral reefs happy. On the flip side of that, though, there's always that flip side, is it can lead to algae blooms that are much more widespread, including toxic red algae like the red tide. Well, on that happy note, let's talk about the forecast. 70% chance of rain today on this Fox 35 weather impact day. And then looking ahead, lower rain chances into the weekend thanks to the dust being present. But if any storms form, they could have a little bit more wind than typically. And then by the middle of next week, we're back into the higher rain chances thanks to a full-blown rainy season pattern. So Garrett, there's a lot going on in the world of weather. I think that this is one of those forecasts you can safely say, I don't think AI could have done that.
Yeah, that's a very good point. That's a question that comes up a lot these days, but at least we have certainty here. Fox 35 Storm Team Meteorologist Brooks Garner, we appreciate you joining us.
You bet. Thank you. I promise there were no prompts.
And as we go to break here on Fox 35 News Plus, give you a live look at Daytona Beach from our Hard Rock Hotel camera. We'll be right back in 2 minutes. Keep it here on Fox Local and on YouTube.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Wednesday morning, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. A federal judge temporarily blocked parts of Florida's new social media law, citing concerns over the First Amendment. So this is the law that bans children 13 and younger from having social media accounts, and also requires parental consent for 14 and 15-year-olds. It also mandates age verification for users who are accessing harmful content. Now, we should note that the Attorney General for the state of Florida, James Othmeyer, has quickly appealed this decision, so things are not settled yet. But that parts of that law temporarily on hold right now after that federal judge stepped in. Joining us live now via Zoom to talk about this case and where things go from here is Matt Shears, who's the president and CEO of the CCIA. That is the Computer and Communications Industry Association, one of the groups that actually challenged this law in court. And Matt, we really appreciate you joining us this morning here on Fox 35 News Plus.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, Matt, first I want to get your reaction to this injunction, this temporary block of this law.
Right. So yesterday's ruling vindicates what we've been saying all along, that Florida's law violates the First Amendment by blocking and restricting minors, and likely adults as well, from using certain lawful websites. We argued that the state cannot lawfully ban young people from going online, and it can't say to teens, as a condition of going online, you have to disclose who you are and where you live and how old you are and who your parents are. Our argument is that the First Amendment doesn't allow the state of Florida to gatekeep speech like that, and the court agreed with us yesterday.
The Attorney General, as we noted, quick to appeal, and in the statement saying, in essence, that these social media companies don't have a constitutional right to get kids addicted to their websites, their products. How do you respond to that?
Look, yeah, there are legitimate questions about when and where and for how long young people should be going online, and every family needs to make those decisions. But those decisions are best made around the dinner table, not Governor DeSantis's desk. And that's what happened here. Now, what we need to do is empower parents to make decisions with the tools that they have available to decide how young people in their family should be using these services, but not have those decisions made by politicians. They're better made by parents. And so the plaintiffs here did not challenge a provision that compels companies to give effect to a parent's request that a website terminate a young person's account. So that provision stays in effect today because it's one that empowers parents to make decisions on behalf of their young people, not politicians.
Why was it important to you as president and CEO of the CCIA that your organization get involved and challenge this? So
young people themselves have First Amendment rights, and the court makes very clear in its opinion yesterday that they're not pre-citizens, that they're citizens themselves, and they should be empowered to interact with and express and voice their opinions. The services that they're using also have a First Amendment right to make those products available to young people. And our point is that policymakers can't short circuit their citizens' First Amendment rights by making these hyperbolic claims. You know, time after time, regulators have encountered new media, whether it's comic books or rock and roll or cable television or video games, with overheated claims. And what the court said, as it said in the past, is that state regulation of expressive products like this has to be narrowly tailored. And kicking a generation of young people offline is not narrowly tailored.
This is a conversation that has been going on and growing as these social media platforms have become more and more prevalent and pervasive, as these smartphone devices have been getting in so many more people's hands. It's everywhere now. So my question is, is there some regulation of minors being able to access this that you and your organization are okay with, or where do you think that line needs to be?
Well, so as we saw in yesterday's opinion, only parts of this law were challenged. The parts that empower parents to make decisions about what's appropriate for their young people. And if they ask a website to terminate their child's account, that website should give effect to that, is the kind of parental empowerment that we want to see. But every family is different and every service is different. Different services have different offerings, and families should choose based on what's available in the marketplace, what's appropriate for their young people. And so we have seen laws that try to empower families through education and awareness campaigns about what tools are available, but banning young people from the internet or gatekeeping their access to speech unless they disclose all this personally identifiable information is not the right path forward.
As this case continues to move forward now with this appeal, are you confident in your case, your argument here?
Yeah, we're confident that when this gets up to the federal appeals court, that the arguments that we have made that succeeded yesterday will succeed again. That's consistent with the decisions we've been seeing on similar laws like this across the nation.
Why is this such a concern in your view?
So, as I said, time and time again, when policymakers have encountered new media, there is often an overreaction and overheated rhetoric that leads us to make decisions that, in hindsight, seem frankly ridiculous. You know, we went through this with video games 2 decades ago, and what we've seen is that tools that empower parents with information that allow families to make their own decisions about what's important are far more appropriate and far more effective than decisions handed down by regulators in the Capitol deciding by fiat that these people can't access this speech. That's just not how the First Amendment works. And the United States has a long tradition of defending the First Amendment rights of businesses, of young people to communicate and express themselves. And yesterday's decision was very clear that this is one of the most powerful means that Americans have to express their views, and to kick a generation offline because of these overheated concerns is not the right thing to do.
All right, it's going to be interesting to see where things go from here. Something we will, of course, continue to follow as it moves through the court system. Matt Shears, co-plaintiff here, and the president and CEO of the Computer and Communications Industry Association. Really appreciate your time this morning, and thanks for joining us here on Fox 35 News Plus.
Great, thanks for having me.
We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer. Thanks for joining us on this Wednesday morning, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. This morning, some Orlando City and Orange County leaders and officials and others were part of a strategic planning meeting that was going on for a centralized family justice center. That's what these locations are called. It basically brings a lot of critical services for domestic violence survivors all under one roof. According to those who spoke at that meeting, it really can be a game changer when it comes to helping survivors. So city and county officials today were joining with the Harbor House of Central Florida. They're trying to make this a reality, and here's a little bit of what they said at that meeting just a little bit ago.
Good morning. Thank you all for here today. My special thanks, of course, to Harbor House of Central Florida for its unwavering commitment to survivors of domestic violence and their families. I want to say to Michelle and the board and staff that we're thankful for your vision and your leadership and the many years of service that you've provided to this community. Today marks an important step toward realizing a vision that I think everybody in this room shares, which is a centralized, survivor-focused family justice center that brings critical services together under one roof. And I know that that's a dream, I suppose, that is going to become reality that Michelle has been preaching for a number of years now. But the City of Orlando is proud to partner and be a supporter of that effort, and the center represents our promise to change, to offer safety and hope and a plan forward. So it's great to see so many with expertise here to support that notion, as well as we shape a strategic plan that leads to a real lasting impact for survivors here in Central Florida. So again, thank you to each of you for your dedication and your passion to this important work.
Thank you so much, Mayor. Next, I would like to bring up our Orange County Sheriff, Sheriff Mina.
Thank you, Michelle, and thanks to all of you for what you do every day in our communities to help keep the folks here safe. As I look around, I see so many familiar faces and from so many different entities that we've worked with throughout the year. At the Orange County Sheriff's Office, the bulk of what we do is domestic violence and elder abuse and human trafficking and child abuse. So to have the services in one centralized location at a family justice center is something that I am extremely supportive of. I've heard the successes from across the country, and I want that for our community here in Orange County. So I support the Family Justice Center here in Orange County in Orlando, and thank you for what you do here to help this community and keep us all safe.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Michelle, for the opportunity to present to everyone participating today. And just to piggyback off of my fellow leaders in the community, the clerk's office is proud to partner with Harbor House to continue to level up our services to those citizens in Central Florida. My office processes over 3,000 petitions for domestic violence on a daily basis. And we continue to make sure that we're working with our partners to make sure that our survivors know how to access the justice system. That is key to make sure, because the injunction is just one tool of a tool. It's just one resource they have. We want to make sure that we're increasing that access to them so they can navigate the justice system well and safe. And what I'm excited about with this center is Orange County, I just think, does a great job at collaborating. And I want to first start out when we worked with the Domestic Violence Task Force, and we created the one-stop shop court hearings for domestic violence. And we started that process long ago, and that has been going on very well. Now Harbor House is in the courthouse, which is a great presence in our courthouse. And this is just another level, right, with a one-stop shop where people can access all of those services. So I think it speaks to how great collaboration Orange County is and working with all their partners, whether it's the city, law enforcement, and the county, to making sure we're protecting our victims in Central Florida. So I'm excited to support this endeavor, and I'm looking forward to what comes out of the session today.
I attended in January, so Casey, thank you for coming. I missed you at the board meeting yesterday. He came to our board meeting and provided public comment talking about this very issue, so we appreciate that. I think everything has been said so beautifully by Mayor Dyer and Sheriff Mina and Clerk Russell, and I want to thank all three of them who have served on the Domestic Violence Commission and had representation. It's so important when our community coalesces around an issue, and I've had the pleasure of working for Orange County government now for 31 years, and I think that's what this community does best, is collaborate and bring everyone to the table. I give so much credit to Michelle Sprizzell. She is our when it comes to bringing the right people into the room and being able to continue this conversation. I just want to say kudos to Judge Latimer. I don't think she's here at this session, but she was the one who led our court processing subcommittee that had that initiative and idea to have the one-stop, as Clerk Russell said, where a victim, a survivor, has all those resources in one area. And I appreciate her good work and bringing that forward and her continued support. So I just want to say, as we all know, government can't do this alone. That's why you all are here in this room. And it does take those public-private partnerships, our businesses, our philanthropic organizations to be a part of this very important conversation.
That was part of that conversation at the strategic planning meeting. At the very end there, you saw Gail Strack, who's the director of the first ever Family Justice Center in San Diego, talking a little bit about what they were able to see from it there, and also saying that the support from the officials here in Orange County and Orlando will go a long way toward making this a success here. We're going to take a quick break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back after this.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer. Thanks for joining us on this Wednesday morning. A 15-year-old and his mother were arrested after a stabbing in Deltona. And as Fox 35's Morgan Parrish reports, it all stemmed from a fight that happened in school.
Good morning. So deputies say that the mother tried to give a false alibi to cover for her son. And actually on your screen right now, you're taking a look at her mugshot. But I want you guys to take a look at this video. These are the moments that she and her 15-year-old son were arrested. You could see them both being put in handcuffs. And that stabbing happened just south of Heritage Middle School last week. Now, fortunately, the stabbing victim is recovering and is expected to be okay. But while looking over the video of that attack, deputies say they quickly noticed some discrepancies in both his and his mother's alibi versus what was being seen in evidence. So ultimately, that's how a cell phone may have been the key to making those arrests.
His cell phone gave him up. So he's got a warrant out for aggravated battery. Mom's being arrested as well. She's going to be my nominee for Mother of the Year. Your son's out there stabbing people, and you're creating an alibi to have him not be held accountable. Well, now we're going to hold you accountable.
And the team was actually with his grandmother at the time of his mother's arrest. Moments later, we learned his grandmother was turning him into police after they came looking for him. And we know that the mother was being held on a $500 bond. As of this morning, she has already bonded out, so there will be no first appearance today. Of course, we're still waiting on some more details, so as soon as we get an update, we'll continue to bring you guys the latest. For now, I'll send it back to you guys in the studio.
In Kissimmee, major changes coming to the fire department there. They will be the first department in Central Florida to regularly give firefighters an extra day of rest. But to pay for those changes, the city also had to approve a plan that also passes on some of those costs to property owners. Fox 35's Manny Martinez was at a meeting last night where a majority of city leaders said that the benefits outweigh the costs.
The room full of firefighters and their families celebrated the changes coming to the Kissimmee Fire Department. City leaders approved moving firefighters to a new schedule, 24 hours on shift followed by 72 hours off. An extra day's rest for KFD firefighters without any kind of pay cut.
This is truly the best option to give us the best recovery, to give us the best time with our families, and to truly help the citizens of Kissimmee and public safety to be #1.
To do it, the city will have to hire 49 new firefighters. To pay for it, the city will impose a yearly fire assessment on property owners citywide, a base fee of $105 per property on top of a rate of 56 cents per every $1,000 of property improvements. That means the owners of homes like these will pay roughly $200 a year. The city estimates the assessment generates a little more than $6 million.
We keep growing as a community, our city keeps expanding, and we just need to be ahead of it.
Congratulations, you guys have put us in a stranglehold with our taxes.
I want to understand why it's not already included in what we pay already for taxes.
The things that I've seen, the heartbreaking stories that my husband has spared me from, the emotional weight that they carry home, these are burdens most of us will never truly understand.
After public speakers on both sides, the final vote was 4-1. Commissioner Carlos Alvarez was the lone dissenter.
I think it's going to be a burden to renters, real estate folks and property owners.
KFD currently has a little more than 100 firefighters on staff. Coincidentally, Tuesday's meeting kicked off with the swearing in of the department's 4 newest members. KFD will become the first department in Central Florida with a 24/72 schedule, something Fire Chief Jim Wall says will improve morale, boost recruitment, and promote retention, as 70% of the department has less than 10 years experience.
It'll keep them from going to other fire departments, so we'll have 5-year, 10-year, 15-year firefighters. That benefits the whole citizen. When you have a 15-year firefighter paramedic taking care of your family, than constantly having 2- or 3-year firefighters taking care of your family.
Yesterday in Orange County, the Board of County Commissioners approved unanimously chipping in $5 million for a permanent Pulse Memorial. The county going to share the overall $12 million cost now with the city of Orlando, who put on a presentation in that meeting yesterday that we brought to you here on Fox 35 News Plus, where they were asking for the county to contribute some of that money. Orange County Commissioner Kelly Simrad, who represents District 5, was on Good Day Orlando this morning to talk about that decision, also talking about some concerns and the potential of seeking accountability to try to accountability for the One Pulse Foundation, which had originally been in charge of the effort to build a Pulse Memorial, but that foundation, of course, dissolving before the city took over that effort. Here's Commissioner Simrad on Good Day Orlando this morning.
So as you know, it was a unanimous vote, but for you as commissioners, though, you still had a lot to weigh here. We'll get into all that, but what was the biggest issue for you, and how do you feel about this funding agreement?
The biggest issue for me is that we actually realized what we promised, and that a memorial was built in this dedicated space to a tragedy that our community is still trying to heal from. And the good news about that is that that was the position that everybody was on. Everybody wants to see this memorial finished. Everybody wants to honor the lives of these angels, and everybody wants to make sure that the families feel as though that we have lived up to our promises. So that was the good thing of what we got out of yesterday's Board of County Commission meeting. It's a great thing.
Yeah, because it's certainly not the victims or the family's fault in this case. As you know, many in the public have the concerns where these millions of dollars went that were raised by the One Pulse Foundation. So where does that investigation stand? Was it hard to look past that during this vote?
It is hard to look past it because you look to remedy the problem that occurred. As I understand it, though, yesterday our vote was just for the allocation of the $5 million. Coming in the later stage, what we're going to begin to see is that we have a contract that recognizes all of the critical pieces for some internal controls to ensure that it doesn't happen again, that we don't have millions of dollars go missing.
What can the city do to kind of ease some of the worries as this project moves forward, really a partnership between the city and county?
I think just access to the information, and there was no issue yesterday coming from the city. They seem super eager to work with the county. I know the county is eager to work with the city. So just making sure that, either it's the comptroller on the county side as well as the controller on the inside of the city, just making sure that there's access to the information, access to how things are spent, and making sure that we realize the goal, which is the memorial.
Yeah, part of this is the memorial, and then part of it's still looking back. Would you like to see an audit, maybe even a criminal investigation? That gets difficult. There are issues there. In fact, Comptroller Phil Diamond, you mentioned him. He said no records were turned over. So how does the county go about looking into that, or is too much time going by here?
I don't think that too much time has gone by. What ends up happening is that the city is the one who would have the ability to do the audit, but the city doesn't have the capability to do an audit on a 501c3 is what we understood from yesterday. So we don't really have a course of action that we can take from a county level perspective. The city feels comfortable that they've done everything that they can and that they don't, it's unfortunate what happened, but we don't have the ability, and they don't have the ability to enforce an audit or to conduct an audit or to have any type of criminal charges or theft of money, nothing. So our job is to put the pieces back together again and make sure that we get this memorial built.
Kelly, let's finish with this quickly. Just give us a sense when the presentation was made yesterday, what was the reaction afterwards once you had that unanimous vote?
There was a big sigh of relief from my fellow commissioners sitting on either side of me. This is a long time coming, and I know that everybody, both from the city and the county, is relieved that we're on the same page and moving forward.
We're going to take a break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Wednesday morning, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. Basketball Hall of Famer Alonzo Mourning is now pushing for new prostate cancer screening guidelines. He was 54 years old when he was diagnosed with prostate cancer. Consulted with a doctor in Orlando in 2024, and that doctor then performed a procedure. Morning is now fully recovered. He is cancer-free, but he's wanting to change to these guidelines because the latest guidelines from 2018 advise men between the ages of 55 and 69 to talk with their doctor about a potential screening for prostate cancer. It's actually recommended against screening for men over the age of 70. Now, Dr. Vipul Patel, who is Alonzo Mourning's doctor in this, he recommends screening start at the age of 40 for Black patients or patients with a family history of prostate cancer, and yearly exams for those aged 50 and higher. Alonzo Mourning and Dr. Patel held a news conference earlier this week to talk about their advocacy and what they want to see change.
Yeah, I think the guidelines that we're talking about are the ones from the U.S. Preventative Task Force, and I think they're a little bit outdated. Especially in Alonzo's case, the guidelines say that, if you're less than 55, you don't need to be screened. And so guys like Alonzo wouldn't have been screened. And then guys over 70 also shouldn't be screened because they think that potentially they're not going to have life expectancy that's significant. And obviously, we're seeing in the media with our former president of what's happening that he didn't get screened, and this has really come to the forefront. So what we'd like to really see is a reevaluation of the guidelines to make more sense. There are guidelines out there, but I think those of us in practice don't really use them because we know that they don't really make clinical sense for the patients that we have today.
And Alonzo,
go right ahead.
for Alonzo, I was going to ask you this. As a Black man, I know personal history. My dad had it like your dad and grandfather.
Yeah.
But I got checked out at 35.
Right.
Just in case to play it safe. What message are you saying, particularly to Black men? Because I think we're 1 in 5 chances of getting it. What do you suggest? Because sometimes, even now, the talk is kind of difficult to have. I don't know why, but it just is.
Well, that's a great question. Listen, first of all, this is asymptomatic. I was walking around feeling great. Didn't realize I had an aggressive form of cancer in me, Gleason rating of 8. And, if I would have never gone to see my urologist, God knows it probably would have spread. And, with all my other health obstacles that I do have, I'm pre-diabetic, and I had a kidney transplant. And who knows? I mean, I probably wouldn't be here talking to you today, but the long and short, the facts are that 60% of men, this is from the Cleveland Clinic, 60% of men don't regularly see a doctor. All right. And there's a lot of reasons, financial reasons, there's fear, there's trust to doctors. They don't like to talk about their any type of health obstacles that they may have. They like to keep them private until it's too late, and 1 out of 8 men will be diagnosed with prostate cancer, so when you think about these numbers and then you think about that this is very prevalent in men of color, that like Dr. Patel said, we got to change the guidelines, because this is the number 1, the most common cancer in men. This is the most common cancer in men. And a lot of men don't realize that. And, we need to do the screenings early. It needs to be mandated when guys go and get a checkup. When they get a regular annual checkup, it needs to be mandated. Guys need to get a PSA check, and now it's a lot less invasive because it's just a blood test. Guys worry about, the finger and all of that, and they don't want to deal with that, but hey, man, whatever it is that saves your life, your existence, a lot of people rely on you being here, your children, your family, and what have you, so you going through this process and being an active participant in taking care of yourself is extremely important. So, knowing the facts is extremely important. And we're giving you the facts, the hard facts. This is very prevalent, and there's no way of getting around it because it's very prevalent, not just in men in our country, but around the world. Dr. Patel is in Africa. Dr. Patel is in Africa right now doing surgeries on men, so it's around the world this happens.
Dr. Patel, how is technology affecting treatment going forward?
Yeah, I think a lot of things have changed. It's not just about PSA. We have so many other markers now and tests that can help us differentiate, who really is at risk and who's not. So not everyone with a high PSA needs a biopsy. We have genetic tests. We have different types of urine tests. We have the MRI like Alonzo got. So we have a lot of ways to kind of differentiate who really needs to be screened. And I think the problem is if you don't get that PSA, you'll never get the other tests, and you'll never have a chance really to make that decision for yourself. By not allowing or not mandating screening, I think some of the decision-making power has been taken away from men. It's the number one cancer in men, non-skin, but it's the second leading cause of cancer death in men as well. So prostate cancer is important, and especially African-American men. They get prostate cancer earlier, and it's more aggressive, and they have high risk of mortality. So this is a very important message.
Other questions for Alonzo?
Actually, to both gentlemen, to Dr. Patel and Alonzo, from both your perspectives, how important is it to tell men, because I'm a prostate cancer survivor myself, to be proactive in their health? How important is it, and how do you get that message out to them?
Well, I'll go first, Doc. You can't leave it to chance. I had a kidney transplant, and I found out I had kidney disease through a regular routine checkup. Okay. I found out I had prostate cancer through a regular routine checkup. I had symptoms, and men in general, we're told to, as a kid, we're told to suck it up, be a man, you'll be okay, and when you ignore the symptoms. And we got to change that narrative. We really do. We got to change that narrative. We got to help men understand, as you get older, you're going to run into more and more, age-related complications, that you can't ignore. And it's important for us to get out in front of these things, especially if you have people that rely on your existence and being here, that you have to take care of yourself, so just going to the doctor once a year, and it's no different than, if you're driving your car and the check engine light comes on, that check engine light comes on, you don't ignore it, you see it, and you say, man, I got to take this car to get in and get it serviced. They got to get it looked at, otherwise it's going to break down and I won't be able to get to work and earn a living and take care of myself. So it's the same thing with your body. Whatever you're feeling, what have you, that check engine light come on, whatever you're feeling, you got to go to the doctor, and even if you don't feel anything, you just got to have the reassurance and knowing that I went and got a regular checkup this year. I've got my checkup out of the way this year.
Certainly some good words of advice and things to keep in mind. We're going to take a break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we will be right back.
watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Nearly 300 people showed up last night for an hour-and-a-half long panel discussion about the future of the site of Tropicana Field and the historic gas plant district. Questions about the fate of those locations have been up in the air after the deal fell through for the Tampa Bay Rays stadium. So now there's just a lot of questions about what all is going to happen with that. Colleen Wright, the St. Petersburg reporter for the Tampa Bay Times, moderated that discussion last night, and the first question was about their dreams for the Tropicana Field site without any limits.
So there's so much land available for development that I think it would be a mistake to say I want this one thing. I'd like to see the community sort of re-stitched together, or to have the street grid reintroduced to that area. And then I'd like to see it developed with a neighborhood idea so that there's different segments. Instead of trying to say 86 acres and it's all going to be like this, we want to have different areas, maybe some more low-rise, some denser, some more commercial, some more family-oriented. So that would just be off the top of my head what I would go with.
I agree from a structural standpoint. I would say philosophically, I'd like to see there's enough there. You know, the old adage says everybody eats. That there should be room for local entrepreneurs, local developers, statewide entrepreneurs and developers, national developers as well. And I'd like to see it sort of go up and down that range. And again, I think there is the project is so big that literally everybody should eat.
Good evening, everyone. Can you all hear me okay? Thank you for having me. For me, from a sustainability standpoint and environmental standpoint, I like to see us focus on resiliency, including net zero energy use, solar-ready construction, and microgrids for emergency response. Whatever we build there, it needs to be able to withstand a Cat 5 hurricane. It needs to be a combination of things, a community hub, a resiliency hub. It should be inclusive. It should have green space. It should have things that mean something to each one of us. So I think it's an opportunity, as we heard, for this to be a reconfiguration of our legacy. And the question I will pose to you all now, and I'll come back to it, when we look at this, what is our legacy and what do we want our legacy to be? I'm deeply rooted in legacy planning right now as a Black woman in the space. So as I look at my legacy 7 generations from now, I pose the question to all of you, what does your legacy look like?
Good evening. I'm going to divide my response to this question into 2 parts. The first part is what I want to happen. The second part is what I think has to happen. What I want to happen is more baseball. I was 13 years old when I went to the Rays opening day with a friend and my parents. My mom is here in the audience tonight. And so it's not a reach to say that baseball is part of my culture. It is part of our environment here in St. Petersburg and throughout Pinellas County, and it is hard to see them go. But moving to the second response, I understand that may have to happen, and we may have to engage with other stakeholders and pursue other priorities. And I accept that because the negotiations and the history of the site would lend itself towards a different, more creative solution. I agree with what Peter said in terms of diversifying the facilities there, and I agree with the idea of having it be resilient. I think there's a long way to go to figure out what that mix actually consists of, but I do accept that it has to change.
Well, I might begin by saying I wanted to say that. But I do think I would like to begin with baseball because I think there's a simpatico between St. Pete and baseball. It fits. I say that from the standpoint that I went to the preseason games to, what do you call them?
Spring training.
Okay. I went to those games, and I remember the day that my mother let me drive the car, and I saw Larry Doby, who was here for spring training, and he waved. I remember that all these years. So I think there's something about that's very special about baseball. My 90-year-old, my friend's 90-year-old mother was selected by the Times and the Rays to, and they went to her home, had her picked up by a limousine and taken to the game because she was a Rays fan. Now that was maybe, no, she was 98 when that happened. But she listened to the Rays game on radio. That's how committed she was. Those are just examples of how important I think it is. I think it needs to happen. I know that there are several financial issues that are probably I'm not as astute on, but I'm sure those...
Many of those panelists talking about the importance, trying to bring baseball back, keeping baseball in St. Petersburg in some form there. But as we have discussed many times, as this saga has drawn on, still a lot of questions about that. We're actually going to talk with Colleen in our 2 o'clock hour here on Fox Local, so we hope you join us for Florida Live coming up at